Imagine a snowy night in Chicago, where the wind howls like a grieving widow, and the streets are cloaked in a silence so heavy it could crush a man's soul. Michael Stone, a billionaire CEO whose name echoes through the skyscrapers of this city, stands frozen in an alley, his tailored black coat dusted with snow, his silver hair catching the faint glow of a street lamp. He's a man who's built an empire, a man who's known nothing but power, but tonight, he's on his knees, trembling, his blue eyes wide with a terror he hasn't felt in 12 years. Before him stands a little girl, no more than 12, her tattered jacket barely clinging to her frail frame, her bare feet red from the cold, her tangled brown hair matted with snow. She's just offered him the last piece of bread she has, a stale crust she's been clutching in a crumpled paper bag, her small hand shaking as she holds it out to him. Her voice, soft and trembling, had pierced the night air moments ago, saying, "You look sad. I don't have much, but you can have this. It's my last piece." Michael had tried to refuse, his voice rough, his pride wounded by the idea of taking from a child who has nothing, but she'd insisted, stepping closer, her tiny frame dwarfed by his, and that's when the light caught her face fully. That's when he saw her eyes. Those striking blue eyes, flecked with gray, so hauntingly familiar that his breath caught in his throat, his heart slamming against his ribs like a caged animal. They were Elizabeth's eyes, the eyes of the woman he loved and lost 12 years ago, the woman he thought he'd buried along with every dream of a family he'd ever had. But how could this be? Elizabeth was gone, her laughter silenced, her warmth stolen by a cruel twist of fate, and Michael had been told he could never have children, a diagnosis that had shattered their marriage, driving her away. So who was this child, this fragile girl who looked at him with a kindness that didn't belong in a world as harsh as hers, her gaze piercing through the walls he'd built around his heart? His hands tremble as he reaches into his pocket, pulling out a faded photograph, one he's carried for years, a picture of him and Elizabeth, her handwriting on the back, "To my love, Michael, forever yours, E." He stares at the girl, then at the photograph, his mind racing, his chest tightening with a realization he can't yet grasp. The girl tilts her head, her blue eyes searching his, and she speaks again, her voice a whisper that cuts through the storm. "My name's Sophie," she says, her small hand still holding the bread, her other hand clutching a cracked leather wallet, the only thing she has left of her mother. Michael's breath hitches, his knees sinking deeper into the snow, his voice barely audible as he whispers, "Sophie." The name feels like a key to a door he's kept locked for over a decade, a door he's not sure he's ready to open. But those eyes that mirror Elizabeth so perfectly, they're pulling him back to a time he thought he'd lost forever, a time when he was a different man, a man who believed in love, a man who had everything until he let it slip through his fingers. The snow falls heavier now, blanketing the alley in a shroud of white, but Michael doesn't feel the cold, doesn't hear the wind. All he can see is Sophie, all he can feel is the weight of a past he thought he'd buried, a past that's now staring back at him through the eyes of a child he doesn't know, a child who's just given him the last thing she has to give. And as he looks at her, a single tear rolls down his cheek, freezing on his skin, a tear that carries the weight of 12 years of regret, 12 years of loneliness, 12 years of a secret he never knew he'd buried. What had he done all those years ago to bring him to this moment, to this alley, to this child who looked at him like he was her only hope? The answer lies somewhere in the shadows of his past, a past he's about to unravel, whether he's ready or not. Let's step back, let's rewind the clock to just a few hours before that snowy alley, before Michael Stone found himself on his knees, before Sophie's blue eyes shattered the world he thought he knew. It's late afternoon in Chicago, and the city is buzzing with the kind of energy that only comes before a storm, the air thick with anticipation, the sky heavy with clouds that promise snow. Michael is in his penthouse office, a glass fortress at the top of Lancaster Tower, the tallest building in the city, a monument to his success, his power, his isolation. He's 60 now, his silver hair a stark contrast to the sharp black suit he wears, his blue eyes cold as the steel that surrounds him. He's a man who's spent decades building an empire, a man who's known nothing but control, but today, something feels off, a restlessness he can't shake, a heaviness in his chest that he can't explain. He stands by the window, staring out at the city below, the skyline glittering like a constellation of his achievements, but all he feels is emptiness, a void that's been growing inside him for years, a void that started the day Elizabeth walked out of his life. He remembers that night like it was yesterday, the way her blue eyes had filled with tears, the way her voice had trembled as she said, "I can't do this anymore, Michael." He'd let her go, too proud to chase her, too stubborn to admit he was wrong, and that decision has haunted him ever since. He thought he'd never see her again, thought he'd never feel that kind of love again, but today, something is stirring, a memory he can't quite grasp, a feeling he can't ignore. His assistant knocks on the door, breaking his reverie, and hands him a report, but Michael barely glances at it, his mind elsewhere, his thoughts drifting to a time when he was younger, when he was happier, when he still believed in things like love and family. He dismisses the assistant with a wave of his hand, his gaze returning to the city, but his reflection in the glass catches his eye, and for a moment, he doesn't recognize the man staring back at him, a man who's aged not just in years but in sorrow, a man who's lost more than he's ever gained. He decides to leave the office early, a rare occurrence for a man who lives for his work, but today, he needs to walk, to breathe, to escape the suffocating weight of his own success. He takes the elevator down, the descent feeling like a metaphor for his life, a slow fall from the man he used to be. On the street, the first flakes of snow begin to fall, and Michael pulls his coat tighter, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement as he walks with no destination in mind, his thoughts a tangled mess of regret and longing. He passes by a bakery, the smell of fresh bread wafting through the air, and for a moment, he's transported back to a night 12 years ago, a night when he and Elizabeth had shared a loaf of bread under a street lamp, her laughter filling the air, her blue eyes sparkling with a joy he'd never seen before or since. The memory is so vivid, so painful, that he stops in his tracks, his breath catching in his throat, his hand reaching for the photograph in his pocket, the one he's carried all these years, the one that reminds him of what he's lost. He doesn't notice the little girl watching him from the alley across the street, doesn't see her small frame huddled against the wind, doesn't know that she's been watching him for the past 10 minutes, her blue eyes filled with a curiosity she can't explain. Sophie has seen a lot in her 12 years, has known hunger and cold and loss, but she's never seen a man look so sad, so broken, and something inside her, something her mother taught her, compels her to act, to offer the only thing she has left, a piece of bread she's been saving for herself. She steps out of the alley, her bare feet silent on the snowy pavement, her small hand clutching the paper bag, and as she approaches Michael, she doesn't know that she's about to change his life forever, doesn't know that her eyes, those haunting blue eyes, are about to unlock a secret he's buried for 12 years. The snow falls faster now, the city growing quieter, and as Sophie reaches Michael, her voice cuts through the silence, a voice that will echo in his mind for the rest of his life. Let's go back even further, let's travel 12 years into the past, to a time when Michael Stone was a different man, a man who still believed in love, a man who hadn't yet built the walls that would one day define him. It's a warm summer evening in Chicago, and Michael, then in his late 40s, is standing outside a small bakery, the smell of fresh bread filling the air, the sound of laughter drawing him closer. He's not yet the billionaire he'll become, but he's on his way, his ambition a fire that burns brighter with each passing day, his blue eyes sharp with determination, his dark hair untouched by the silver that will one day mark his years. He's waiting for Elizabeth, the woman who's captured his heart, the woman who's taught him what it means to truly live. They've been married for 5 years now, 5 years of joy, of dreams, of a love so deep it feels like it could last forever. Elizabeth is everything Michael isn't, soft where he's hard, warm where he's cold, a dreamer where he's a realist, and together, they balance each other, their love a dance of opposites that somehow works. She steps out of the bakery, her blue eyes sparkling with a mischief he adores, her long brown hair catching the light of the setting sun, a loaf of bread tucked under her arm. She's wearing a simple white dress, her laughter like music as she runs to him, her arms wrapping around his neck, her lips pressing against his in a kiss that tastes like summer and promises. They sit on a bench under a street lamp, sharing the bread, their fingers brushing as they tear off pieces, their laughter mingling with the sounds of the city around them. Elizabeth looks at him, her blue eyes filled with a love so pure it takes his breath away, and she says, One day, Michael, we'll have a little girl, and she'll have your eyes and my smile, and we'll sit here, just like this, a family. Michael smiles, his heart swelling with a hope he's never known, but there's a shadow in his mind, a fear he can't shake, a fear that's been growing ever since the doctors told him he could never have children, a diagnosis that's become a wedge between them, a silent storm brewing beneath their perfect love. He doesn't tell her about the doubt that gnaws at him, doesn't tell her that he's starting to believe their dreams might never come true, but Elizabeth, as always, sees through him, her hand reaching for his, her voice soft as she says, "I believe in us, Michael. I believe in miracles." They walk home that night, hand in hand, the city alive around them, and for a moment, Michael lets himself believe her, lets himself dream of a future where they're a family, where their love is enough to overcome anything. But that dream is fragile, a house of cards waiting to collapse, and as the months pass, the strain begins to show, the weight of their unfulfilled dreams pressing down on them, their arguments growing sharper, their silences longer. Elizabeth wants to try everything, adoption, treatments, anything to make their family whole, but Michael, stubborn and proud, refuses to accept that he can't give her what she wants, refuses to believe that their love isn't enough. One night, it all comes to a head, their voices raised, their words cutting deeper than either of them intends, and Elizabeth, her blue eyes filled with tears, says, "I can't do this anymore, Michael. I can't keep pretending that this isn't breaking me." She leaves that night, her suitcase in hand, her footsteps echoing in the hallway, and Michael doesn't stop her, doesn't chase her, doesn't fight for the woman he loves more than anything in the world. He tells himself she'll come back, tells himself they'll find a way, but deep down, he knows he's made a mistake that will haunt him for the next 12 years, a mistake that will lead him to that snowy alley, to a little girl named Sophie, to a secret he never knew he'd buried. The bakery fades into the night, the street lamp flickering, and as Michael watches Elizabeth walk away, he doesn't know that she's carrying a piece of him with her, a piece he'll only discover when it's almost too late. Now let's shift our gaze to Sophie, to the life she's lived in the shadows of Chicago, a life so far removed from Michael's world of glass and steel that it might as well be on another planet. It's 6 years ago, and Sophie is just 6 years old, her small hand clutching her mother's, her blue eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder as they walk through the city, the snow falling gently around them. Her mother, Anna, as she's known now, is a woman who's aged beyond her years, her once vibrant brown hair dull and brittle, her blue eyes shadowed with exhaustion, her hands rough from years of hard work. She's changed her name, left her past behind, all to protect the little girl by her side, the little girl who's the spitting image of the man she once loved, the man she still loves, even after all these years. Anna, who was once Elizabeth, has spent the last 6 years running, hiding, surviving, her every decision driven by the need to keep Sophie safe, to give her a chance at a life free from the pain of her father's rejection. They live in a tiny, damp apartment on the edge of the city, a single room with peeling wallpaper and a leaky roof, but Anna has made it a home, filling it with love, with stories, with the kind of warmth that money can't buy. She works 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waitressing during the day, washing dishes in a diner on weekends, her body aching, her spirit weary, but she never complains, never lets Sophie see the toll it takes. Every night, she tucks Sophie into bed, her voice soft as she sings a lullaby, a song she wrote for the family she dreamed of, a song that holds all her hopes, all her love, all her pain. Sophie listens, her blue eyes heavy with sleep, her small hand clutching a silver locket, a gift from her mother, the only thing she has left of the life Anna left behind. Inside the locket is a tiny photograph, a picture of Anna and a man Sophie doesn't know, a man with blue eyes like hers, a man her mother never speaks of, but whose presence lingers in the way Anna's voice breaks when she sings, in the way her eyes fill with tears when she thinks Sophie isn't looking. Anna has told Sophie stories, stories of a man who loved her once, a man who didn't believe he could be a father, a man who let them go, but she's never told her the whole truth, never told her that the man in the photograph is her father, that his name is Michael Stone, that he's the reason they're running, the reason they're hiding, the reason Anna cries herself to sleep every night. Sophie doesn't understand, doesn't know why her mother's hands tremble when she sees a man in a suit, doesn't know why they move so often, why they never stay in one place for long, but she trusts her mother, loves her with a fierceness that only a child can feel, and she holds on to the locket, holds on to the stories, holds on to the hope that one day, the man in the photograph will find them, just like her mother said he would. But that hope is fading, because Anna is sick, her body weakening with each passing day, her cough growing worse, her strength slipping away. She knows she doesn't have much time, knows she can't protect Sophie forever, and so she writes a note she tucks into the cracked leather wallet she carries, a note that says, "Michael, she's yours. I never told you because you wouldn't believe me. Forgive me, E." She doesn't know if he'll ever see it, doesn't know if he'll ever care, but it's all she can do, all she can leave behind for the daughter she loves more than life itself. The snow falls heavier now, the city growing colder, and as Anna and Sophie walk hand in hand, their shadows small against the vastness of Chicago, they don't know that their time together is running out, that soon, Sophie will be alone, that soon, she'll be standing in an alley, offering her last piece of bread to a man who doesn't yet know he's her father, a man whose life is about to change forever. Let's return to the present, to the hours after that snowy alley, to the moment when Michael Stone's world began to unravel in ways he never could have imagined. It's late now, the snowstorm in full force, the city a blur of white, but Michael doesn't notice, doesn't care, his focus entirely on the little girl sitting across from him in his sleek black sedan, her small body wrapped in a blanket, her blue eyes watching him with a cautious hope that breaks his heart. He's taken Sophie to his car, unable to leave her in the alley, unable to walk away from those eyes that have haunted him since the moment he saw them, and now, as the heater hums to life, warming the space between them, he looks at her, his voice soft but firm, a promise he's making to himself as much as to her. "You're coming home with me," he says, his blue eyes meeting hers, a determination in their depths that he hasn't felt in years. "You'll never have to sleep on the streets again, Sophie. I'll take care of you, I swear it." Sophie nods, her tears spilling over, her small hand reaching for his, her fingers curling around his in a gesture that feels like a lifeline, a connection he thought he'd never have. They drive through the snow-covered streets, the city silent around them, and as Michael glances at Sophie, her small frame dwarfed by the blanket, he feels a shift inside him, a crumbling of the walls he's built around his heart, a dawning realization that this child, this fragile, brave girl, might be the key to a past he's tried so hard to forget. They arrive at his penthouse, a towering glass structure that looms over the city, its lights reflecting off the snow like a beacon, and Michael carries Sophie inside, her small body nestled against his, her blue eyes wide with wonder at the luxury she's never known. He sets her down on the plush couch, wrapping her in another blanket, and kneels before her, his voice gentle as he speaks. "This is your home now," he says, his blue eyes searching hers, a promise in their depths. "You'll have your own room, your own bed, everything you need. We'll start over, together." Sophie looks around, her small hands clutching the blanket, her blue eyes filled with a mix of awe and uncertainty, her voice a whisper as she says, "I've never had a home like this. Mom and I, we moved a lot. She worked so hard, but we never had enough." Her words are a dagger to Michael's heart, a reminder of the life Elizabeth led after she left him, the life she chose to protect Sophie from a man who wasn't ready to be a father. He reaches for her hand, his grip firm but gentle, and says, "I can't change the past, but I can give you a future, Sophie. I'll make sure you have everything your mother would have wanted for you." Sophie leans into him, her small arms wrapping around his neck, a hug that feels like a bridge across the years of separation, a bridge to a future they'll build together. But as Michael holds her, his mind is racing, his thoughts a storm of questions he can't yet answer. How did Elizabeth survive all those years? Why did she change her name to Anna? Why didn't she tell him about Sophie? And most importantly, how could he have been so blind, so foolish, to let them go? He thinks of the note he found in Sophie's cracked leather wallet, the note that said, "Michael, she's yours. I never told you because you wouldn't believe me. Forgive me, E." The words echo in his mind, a confession that strips him bare, a truth that he's not sure he's ready to face. But as he looks at Sophie, her blue eyes so like Elizabeth's, he knows he can't turn away, knows he has to find the answers, knows he has to be the father he should have been all those years ago. The snow continues to fall outside, the city a silent witness to the reunion unfolding within, and as Michael holds Sophie, he feels a flicker of hope, a spark of purpose that lights the darkness he's lived in for so long, a spark that will lead him to the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Let's dive deeper into the past, let's go back to the moment when everything changed, to the night when Elizabeth made the decision that would shape the next 12 years of her life, of Sophie's life, of Michael's life. It's a rainy night in Chicago, 6 months after that summer evening at the bakery, and Elizabeth is standing in their apartment, her blue eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she packs a suitcase, her heart breaking with every item she folds. She's pregnant, has been for 3 months, a miracle she never thought possible, a miracle Michael doesn't believe in, a miracle that's become a wedge between them, a source of pain rather than joy. She told him the news a month ago, her voice trembling with hope, her blue eyes shining with a love she thought would be enough, but Michael, stubborn and proud, had refused to believe her, his voice cold as he said, "The doctor said it's impossible, Elizabeth. You're mistaken." His words had cut deeper than any knife, his doubt a betrayal she couldn't forgive, and since that day, their marriage has crumbled, their love buried beneath a mountain of resentment and silence. Elizabeth has tried to stay, has tried to fight for them, but tonight, she can't do it anymore, can't bear the weight of his disbelief, can't bear the thought of raising a child in a home filled with so much pain. She looks at Michael, who's sitting on the couch, his blue eyes fixed on the floor, his hands clenched into fists, his silence louder than any argument they've ever had. She wants to scream, wants to shake him, wants to make him see the truth, but she knows it's no use, knows he's too far gone, too lost in his own pride to hear her. So she makes a choice that will change everything, a choice that will lead her to a life of hiding, of struggle, of love so fierce it will sustain her through the darkest days. She writes a note, her handwriting shaky, her tears staining the paper, a note that says, "Michael, I'm leaving. I'm pregnant and the child is yours, but you won't believe me, so I have to go. I'll always love you. Elizabeth." She leaves the note on the table, her heart breaking as she picks up her suitcase, her blue eyes taking one last look at the man she loves, the man she's giving up on, the man she hopes will one day find his way back to her. She walks out into the rain, her white dress clinging to her skin, her brown hair plastered to her face, her steps heavy with the weight of her decision. She doesn't know where she's going, doesn't know how she'll survive, but she knows she has to protect the child growing inside her, knows she has to give her baby a chance at a life free from the pain of a father who doesn't believe in miracles. She changes her name to Anna Carter, a name that feels foreign on her tongue, a name that will become her shield, her armor, her new identity as she builds a life for herself and her unborn child. She moves from city to city, never staying in one place for long, her fear of Michael finding her, of him rejecting their child, driving her forward, even as her body grows weaker, even as her heart aches for the man she left behind. She gives birth to Sophie in a small hospital on the outskirts of Chicago, her blue eyes filled with tears as she looks at her daughter who has Michael's eyes, Michael's strength, Michael's spirit. She names her Sophie, a name that means wisdom, a name that holds all her hopes, all her dreams, all her love. And as she holds her baby, her voice soft as she sings a lullaby, she makes a promise to protect Sophie, to love her, to give her the life she deserves, even if it means sacrificing everything she's ever known. The rain continues to fall outside, the city a blur of lights and shadows, and as Elizabeth, now Anna, cradles her daughter, she doesn't know that her decision will lead to a snowy alley 12 years later, to a moment when her daughter will offer her last piece of bread to a man who doesn't yet know he's her father, a man who's about to face the truth he's been running from for over a decade. Let's return to the present, to the days after Michael brought Sophie home, to the moment when the truth began to unravel, when the past and the present collided in a way that would change everything. It's a quiet morning in Michael's penthouse, the snowstorm having passed, the city bathed in a soft, golden light that feels like a promise of renewal. Michael is sitting at the kitchen counter, a cup of coffee untouched before him, his blue eyes fixed on Sophie, who's asleep on the couch, her small body curled up under a blanket, her tangled brown hair splayed across the pillow. He hasn't slept, hasn't been able to close his eyes since he found the note in Sophie's cracked leather wallet, the note that said, "Michael, she's yours. I never told you because you wouldn't believe me. Forgive me, E." The words have been playing on a loop in his mind, a confession that's torn open wounds he thought had healed, a truth that's forced him to confront the man he was, the man he's become, the man he wants to be. He looks at Sophie, her blue eyes closed in sleep, her small hand clutching the silver locket he gave her, the locket that once belonged to Elizabeth, and he feels a wave of guilt so powerful it threatens to drown him. How could he have been so blind, so foolish, to let Elizabeth go, to let her face the world alone, to let her raise their daughter in poverty while he built an empire of glass and steel? He thinks of the years he spent alone, the nights he sat in this very penthouse, staring at the city skyline, the emptiness inside him a constant ache, and he realizes now that the emptiness wasn't just the loss of Elizabeth, but the loss of a family he never knew he had. He stands, his movements slow, his body heavy with the weight of his regret, and walks to the window, the city stretching out before him, its lights a constellation of possibilities he's never allowed himself to see. He thinks of Elizabeth, of the love they shared, the dreams they lost, and the secret she kept, a secret that gave him Sophie, a daughter he never knew he had. He thinks of his own failures, the pride that drove Elizabeth away, the arrogance that made him believe he didn't need her, didn't need anyone, and he knows he has to find the answers, has to understand why she hid, why she changed her name, why she never came back. He returns to Sophie's side, his hand gentle as he brushes a strand of hair from her face, her blue eyes fluttering open, her voice a whisper as she says, "Are you really my dad?" The question hits him like a punch, his breath catching in his throat, his tears falling freely now as he nods, his voice breaking as he says, "Yes, Sophie. I'm your dad. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you, for your mom." Sophie sits up, her small arms wrapping around his neck, her tears soaking into his shirt, and as Michael holds her, he feels a shift inside him, a determination to be the father she deserves, to honor Elizabeth's memory, to make up for the years he's lost. He decides to start by finding out what happened to Elizabeth, to Anna, to the woman he loved, the woman who gave him this precious child. He calls his assistant, his voice firm as he says, "I need you to find everything you can about a woman named Anna Carter. She lived in Chicago, she had a daughter named Sophie, and she might have been using a different name before that." The assistant nods, sensing the urgency in Michael's tone, and as he hangs up, Michael looks at Sophie, her blue eyes filled with a hope he's determined to protect, a hope that will lead him to the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The city outside is waking up, the sun rising higher, and as Michael holds Sophie, he knows he's on the brink of uncovering a secret that will change everything, a secret that will force him to face the man he was, the man he's become, the man he wants to be. Let's go back to the moment when the truth began to surface, to the day when Michael's search for answers led him to a truth he wasn't prepared to face. It's a week after he brought Sophie home, and Michael is sitting in his office, a stack of papers spread out before him, his blue eyes scanning the documents his assistant has gathered, his hands trembling as he reads. The assistant has found records of Anna Carter, a woman who lived on the edge of Chicago, a woman who worked 3 jobs, a woman who died 2 years ago, her body weakened by illness, her death certificate listing her cause of death as pneumonia, her only surviving family a daughter named Sophie. Michael's breath catches in his throat, his heart pounding as he reads the words, the reality of Elizabeth's death hitting him like a tidal wave, his tears falling onto the paper, blurring the ink. He thinks of the years she spent alone, the years she spent struggling, the years she spent raising their daughter without him, and the guilt is so overwhelming he can barely breathe, his hands clenching into fists, his voice a broken whisper as he says, "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know." He finds a photograph among the documents, a picture of Anna, of Elizabeth, taken a year before her death, her blue eyes tired but still beautiful, her brown hair streaked with gray, her smile faint but still there, a smile that holds all the love, all the pain, all the strength she carried in her heart. Michael stares at the photograph, his tears falling faster now, his mind racing with memories of the woman he loved, the woman he let go, the woman who gave him a daughter he never knew he had. He thinks of the note The note that said, "Michael, she's yours. I never told you because you wouldn't believe me. Forgive me, E." And he realizes now why she hid, why she changed her name, why she never came back. She knew he wouldn't believe her, knew he'd reject their child, knew she had to protect Sophie from a father who wasn't ready to be a father, and so she ran, she hid, she sacrificed everything to give Sophie a chance at a life free from his doubt, his pride, his mistakes. Michael's assistant knocks on the door, his voice hesitant as he says, "Sir, there's more. We found a record of Anna Carter's last known address, and there's a cemetery where she's buried, a small place on the edge of the city." Michael nods, his voice rough as he says, "Take me there. I need to see her." They drive to the cemetery, the city fading into the distance, the snow still lingering on the ground, a quiet reminder of the night that changed everything. Michael steps out of the car, Sophie by his side, her small hand in his, her blue eyes filled with a sadness she doesn't fully understand. They walk to the unmarked grave, a simple patch of earth covered in snow, and Sophie places a bouquet of white roses, her mother's favorite, her small hands arranging them with care, her voice a whisper as she says, "I found him, Mom. Just like you said I would." Michael kneels beside her, his hand on her shoulder, his tears falling onto the snow as he speaks to the woman he loved and lost. "I'm sorry, Elizabeth," he says, his voice breaking, his heart laid bare. "I didn't know, but I'm here now. I'll take care of her, I promise. I'll love her like you did." Sophie leans against him, her small body warm against his, and as they sit together in the quiet, a father and daughter united by a love that transcends time, Michael knows he has to make things right, knows he has to be the father Sophie deserves, the man Elizabeth always believed he could be. The sun begins to set, the sky a soft shade of gold, and as Michael holds Sophie, he feels a resolve settle over him, a determination to uncover the rest of the truth, to honor Elizabeth's memory, to build a future for the daughter he's only just found. Let's move forward, to the days after Michael visited Elizabeth's grave, to the moment when the full weight of the truth came crashing down, when the past and the present collided in a way that would change everything. It's a quiet evening in Michael's penthouse, the city skyline glittering below, the lights a constellation of possibilities he's only just beginning to see. Michael is sitting on the couch, Sophie beside him, her small body curled up against his, her blue eyes heavy with sleep, her small hand clutching the silver locket he gave her, the locket that once belonged to her mother. They've spent the day together, talking, laughing, sharing stories of Elizabeth, of Anna, of the woman who loved them both so fiercely, and Michael feels a peace he hasn't known in years, a peace that comes from knowing he's finally found his daughter, from knowing he has a chance to make things right. But that peace is fragile, a house of cards waiting to collapse, and as Sophie drifts off to sleep, Michael's assistant arrives, his face pale, his hands trembling as he hands Michael a folder, his voice a whisper as he says, "Sir, you need to see this." Michael opens the folder, his blue eyes scanning the documents inside, his breath catching in his throat as he reads. It's a DNA test, a test the assistant ordered without Michael's knowledge, a test that confirms what Michael already knew in his heart, what Elizabeth's note had told him, what Sophie's eyes had screamed from the moment he saw them. Sophie is his daughter, his biological daughter, a miracle he never thought possible, a miracle he rejected all those years ago. The test results are a punch to the gut, a confirmation that shatters the last of his doubts, a truth that forces him to face the man he was, the man who drove Elizabeth away, the man who left her to raise their daughter alone, the man who let his pride destroy the family he could have had. He looks at Sophie, her small body so fragile, so precious, and the guilt is so overwhelming he can barely breathe, his tears falling onto the papers, his hands shaking as he whispers, "I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry, Sophie." He thinks of the years he lost, the years he spent building an empire while his daughter slept on the streets, the years he spent alone while Elizabeth struggled to survive, and the pain is so raw, so visceral, that he feels like he's breaking apart, his heart a shattered thing that may never be whole again. But as he looks at Sophie, her blue eyes closed in sleep, her small hand still in his, he knows he can't give up, knows he has to fight for her, knows he has to be the father she deserves, the man Elizabeth always believed he could be. He stands, his movements slow, his body heavy with the weight of his regret, and walks to the window, the city stretching out before him, its lights a reminder of the life he's built, a life that means nothing without the people he loves. He thinks of the note that said, "Michael, she's yours. I never told you because you wouldn't believe me. Forgive me, E." And he realizes now that Elizabeth didn't just hide to protect Sophie, she hid to protect him from a truth he wasn't ready to face, a truth that would have destroyed him if he'd known it all those years ago. He looks at Sophie, her small body a testament to Elizabeth's love, to her strength, to her sacrifice, and he makes a decision that will change everything, a decision that will lead him to a future he never thought possible. He calls his lawyer, his voice firm as he says, "I need you to start the process to legally adopt Sophie. She's my daughter, and I want to make it official." The lawyer nods, sensing the urgency in Michael's tone, and as he hangs up, Michael looks at Sophie, her blue eyes fluttering open, her voice a whisper as she says, "Are you really going to keep me?" Michael nods, his tears falling freely now, his voice breaking as he says, "Yes, Sophie. I'm never letting you go again." The city outside is quiet, the night a silent witness to the reunion unfolding within, and as Michael holds Sophie, he knows he's on the brink of a new beginning, a beginning that will honor Elizabeth's memory, a beginning that will give Sophie the life she deserves. Let's move to the final chapter of this journey, to the moment when Michael and Sophie find their way back to each other, when the past and the present come full circle, when the healing begins. It's a crisp morning in Chicago, the snow having melted, the city bathed in a soft, golden light that feels like a new beginning. Michael is standing in a small park on the edge of the city, a place he's come to every day for the past week, a place where he's been searching for answers, for closure, for a chance to make things right. He's 60 now, his silver hair catching the sunlight, his blue eyes filled with a hope he hasn't felt in years, his tailored black coat replaced by a simple sweater, a sign of the man he's becoming, a man who's learning to let go of his pride, to embrace the things that truly matter. Sophie is by his side, her small hand in his, her blue eyes bright with a joy she's never known, her tangled brown hair now brushed and shining, her tattered jacket replaced by a soft coat, a gift from the father she's only just found. They've spent the past week together, building a bond that feels like a miracle, a bond that's grown stronger with each passing day, with each story they've shared, with each tear they've shed. Michael has told Sophie about her mother, about Elizabeth, about the woman who loved her so fiercely, who gave up everything to protect her, and Sophie has listened, her blue eyes filled with a sadness that's slowly turning to peace, her small hand clutching the silver locket, the locket that holds a piece of her mother's heart. They've visited Elizabeth's grave again, have placed more white roses, have whispered more promises, and with each visit, Michael feels a little lighter, a little closer to the man he wants to be, the man Elizabeth always saw beneath his flaws. Today, they're in the park for a different reason, a reason that fills Michael with a nervous energy, a reason that could change everything. He started a foundation in Elizabeth's name, a foundation dedicated to building shelters for the homeless, to giving children like Sophie a chance at a better life, a small act to honor Elizabeth's memory, to atone for the years he turned a blind eye to the suffering around him. He's invited the press, has made a public statement, has poured his heart into this project, and now, as he stands in the park, waiting for the event to begin, he feels a sense of purpose he's never known, a sense of hope that's been missing for far too long. Sophie tugs at his hand, her voice a whisper as she says, "Daddy, look." Michael follows her gaze, his breath catching in his throat as he sees a small crowd gathering, their faces filled with curiosity, with kindness, with a warmth he's never noticed before. He sees children playing, their laughter filling the air, their joy a reminder of what he's fighting for, of what Elizabeth fought for, of what Sophie deserves. He kneels beside Sophie, his blue eyes meeting hers, his voice soft as he says, "This is for your mom, Sophie. And for you. I want to make the world a better place, a place where no child has to go hungry, where no child has to sleep on the streets." Sophie nods, her tears spilling over, her small arms wrapping around his neck, her voice a whisper as she says, "I love you, Daddy." The words are a gift, a balm to his wounded soul, and as Michael holds her, his tears falling into her hair, he feels a peace he's never known, a peace that comes from knowing he's finally found his family, from knowing he's finally doing right by the woman he loved, the daughter he's only just found. The event begins, the press snapping photos, the crowd applauding, but Michael doesn't notice, doesn't care, his focus entirely on Sophie, on the future they're building together, on the love that's brought them here, to this moment, to this park, to this new beginning. The sun rises higher, the city alive around them, and as Michael and Sophie stand together, hand in hand, they know that the road ahead won't be easy, that the scars of the past will always be there, but they also know that they have each other, that they have love, that they have hope, and that's enough to carry them through, to a future brighter than they ever dared to dream. The story ends here, a tale of loss and redemption, of secrets and healing, of a billionaire CEO and a homeless girl whose lives were forever changed by a single act of kindness, by a pair of blue eyes that held a secret buried for 12 years. Michael and Sophie have found their way back to each other, have built a bond that will carry them through the years ahead, have honored Elizabeth's memory in a way that will touch countless lives. The city of Chicago continues to hum around them, its lights a constellation of possibilities, its streets a canvas for new stories, new dreams, new beginnings. And as the sun sets on this day, casting a golden glow over the park, over the father and daughter who stand together, hand in hand, we're reminded that sometimes, the greatest miracles come from the smallest acts, that sometimes, a piece of bread can change a life, that sometimes, love can find its way back, even after 12 years of darkness. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for feeling every tear, every heartbeat, every moment of this story. If it touched you, if it moved you, if it made you believe in the power of love, of redemption, of second chances, then share it with someone you care about, someone who needs to hear it, someone who needs to know that even in the darkest of nights, there's always a light waiting to be found. And until we meet again, keep those you love close, keep your heart open, and never stop believing in miracles. Let's step into a small corner of Chicago, a place where the scent of freshly baked bread lingers in the air, where the warmth of an oven has been a quiet witness to the lives that pass through its doors. It's a crisp autumn morning, 6 months after Michael Stone and Sophie found their way back to each other, and the city is alive with the rustle of fallen leaves, the golden light of the season casting long shadows on the pavement. At the edge of the city, in a modest neighborhood where the streets are lined with old brick buildings, stands a tiny bakery, its faded sign reading, Marigold's Bake Shop, a name that holds more history than its peeling paint suggests. Inside, Marigold Evans, a woman in her late 70s, her hair a soft white, her hands gnarled from years of kneading dough, stands behind the counter, her hazel eyes distant, her thoughts lost in a memory that's been haunting her for years. She's just read the newspaper, a headline about Michael Stone's new foundation for the homeless, a foundation named after a woman called Elizabeth, and the photograph accompanying the article shows Michael with a little girl, a girl with striking blue eyes, a girl Marigold knows all too well. Her hands tremble as she sets the paper down, her heart heavy with a mixture of joy and sorrow, her mind racing back to a night 6 years ago, a night that changed everything, a night she's never spoken of until now. It was a rainy evening, the kind of rain that falls in sheets, turning the streets into rivers, the kind of rain that drives people indoors, seeking shelter, seeking warmth. Marigold was closing up the bakery, her hands dusted with flour, her apron stained with the day's work, when the bell above the door jingled, a sound so soft she almost missed it. She looked up, her hazel eyes narrowing in the dim light, and saw a woman standing in the doorway, her brown hair plastered to her face, her blue eyes filled with a desperation Marigold had seen too many times in her long life. The woman was holding a little girl, no more than 6, her small body shivering, her blue eyes wide with fear, her small hand clutching a silver locket, the only thing she had left of her mother's past. The woman spoke, her voice trembling, her words a plea that broke Marigold's heart. "Please," she said, her blue eyes searching Marigold's, "we have nowhere to go. I just need a place for my daughter to sleep tonight. I'll work for it, I'll clean, I'll do anything." Marigold didn't hesitate, her heart softening at the sight of the child, at the sound of the woman's voice, a voice that held a strength beneath its fragility, a voice that reminded her of her own daughter, lost to illness decades ago. She ushered them inside, locking the door behind them, her hands gentle as she wrapped the little girl in a blanket, her voice soft as she said, "You're safe here, both of you. What's your name, child?" The woman hesitated, her blue eyes flickering with a fear Marigold couldn't understand, before she whispered, "Anna. And this is Sophie." Marigold nodded, her hazel eyes warm with a kindness that had sustained her through her own losses, and she led them to the back of the bakery, where a small cot sat in the corner, a place where Marigold sometimes rested during long days. She watched as Anna tucked Sophie into the cot, her hands trembling, her voice soft as she sang a lullaby, a song that filled the small space with a haunting beauty, a song that Marigold would never forget. That night, as the rain pounded against the windows, Marigold sat with Anna at the counter, a cup of tea between them, the warmth of the bakery a stark contrast to the storm outside. Anna spoke, her voice low, her words heavy with a pain Marigold could feel in her bones. She told Marigold about a man she'd loved, a man who didn't believe in miracles, a man who let her go, a man who didn't know he had a daughter who was sleeping just a few feet away. She didn't say his name, didn't say much about him, but Marigold saw the love in her eyes, the regret, the longing, and she knew this was a woman who had sacrificed everything for her child, a woman who was running from a past she couldn't escape. Marigold listened, her hazel eyes filled with a quiet understanding, her hand reaching for Anna's, a gesture of comfort, a gesture of solidarity. She didn't ask questions, didn't pry, but she made a promise to herself, a promise to keep their secret, to protect them for as long as they needed her. Anna and Sophie stayed for a week, Anna working in the bakery, her hands steady as she kneaded dough, her blue eyes softening with each passing day, Sophie's laughter filling the small space, her blue eyes bright with a joy Marigold hadn't seen in years. But one morning, they were gone, a note left on the counter, Anna's handwriting shaky, her words a whisper of gratitude. "Thank you, Marigold. You gave us a home when we had none. We'll never forget you. Anna." Marigold had cried that day, her heart breaking for the woman and child who had become a part of her life, her hands clutching the note, her hazel eyes filled with a sorrow she couldn't shake. Now, as Marigold stands in her bakery, the newspaper before her, she feels a tear roll down her cheek, a tear that carries the weight of 6 years of wondering, 6 years of hoping, 6 years of praying that Anna and Sophie had found their way. She looks at the photograph of Michael and Sophie, her hazel eyes tracing the lines of Sophie's face, a face so like her mother's, a face that holds a happiness Marigold always wished for her. She thinks of Anna, of Elizabeth, of the woman who loved so fiercely, who gave everything for her daughter, and she feels a peace settle over her, a peace that comes from knowing that Sophie has found her father, that Elizabeth's sacrifice was not in vain. Marigold picks up the note Anna left all those years ago, her hands steady now, her heart full, and she whispers, "You did it, Anna. You kept her safe. And now, she's home." The bell above the door jingles, and Marigold looks up, her hazel eyes meeting the blue eyes of a little girl she thought she'd never see again, a little girl who's standing beside a man with silver hair, a man who's finally found his way back to the family he lost. And as Sophie runs to her, her small arms wrapping around her, Marigold knows that some stories, even the most broken ones, can find their way to a happy ending.